field. Madam Clerk, shall we begin with item 1?
For item 1, the Controller has submitted reports relative to the performance audit of Los Angeles 311.
We do have someone from the Controller's Office that's going to give us a brief presentation.
I'm Cynthia Varela with the Controller's Office. We performed an audit of the 311 call center to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of the call center by assessing whether 311 had the right mix of tools, resources, and management practices to provide a seamless constituent contact experience. The report was issued on May 12, 2014, and generally covered activities through 2012. We did provide some updated information through 2013 where we were able to do that. Our overall assessment was that the city and ITA were not able to meet several of the key goals established for 311. Overall, 311 had operated more like a traditional switchboard operator than a centralized and consolidated customer service system. 311 underperformed when compared to benchmark and industry performance metrics such as call waiting and call abandonment. The key issues noted in the report, we found that ITA may not be the ideal organization responsible for 311 since constituent services is not part of the department's core mission, and a citywide effort such as 311 requires sustained executive level leadership, authority, and initiative. During the audit period reviewed, we noted that 311's ability to meet public service demand had declined, and being part of ITA's departmental budget had subjected 311 to the department's budgetary constraints, reductions, and prioritization. Executive support or having top leadership is a critical success factor for 311 programs, which we found to be the case in New York City and in a 2012 comparative survey that noted that 39% of the 67 respondents had their 311 operations reporting to the mayor or county manager. Second issue was that 311 was not able to meet public demand for services, and key metrics indicated that 311 performance was declining. On average, in 2012, Los Angeles callers had to wait nearly 3 minutes longer than a caller to our benchmark agencies, which included New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Houston, and Miami-Dade County. That meant that it was a 3.75-minute wait time for LA callers versus a 1-minute average for our benchmark cities. The wait time could have been even longer since 311 had a high transfer rate to departmental call centers, which often had wait times up to nearly 4 minutes. We also noted that 30% of the calls were abandoned before being answered by a 311 operator compared to the benchmark average of 22%. It's important to note that additional operators were hired in April 2013 and that call waiting and call abandonment metrics improved from the prior periods, but there was still a high proportion of transferred calls. That was at 42% at the time that we had issued the report. Next issue, 311 was not able to effectively consolidate the city's call centers as originally planned and continued to operate more like a switchboard operator than the centralized service system. One of the city's original goals was to consolidate all of the separate departmental call centers into a single facility to handle questions and requests. In 2005, there were 12 centers, and those were reduced to 9 separate contact centers in 2012, so not a big reduction there. ITA had not implemented the citywide service request system and did not appear to have well-developed plans for the successor system, the MyLA 311 Constituent Relationship Management System, or CRM. CRM was intended to simplify and consolidate call intake, resolution, tracking, and reporting of 311 requests. Subsequent to field work, we were provided documentation from ITA that demonstrated CRM's major objectives, scope of work, funding, governance, assigned staff, and project tasks with start and completion target dates. It was planned to implement, ITA had planned to implement CRM at the end of 2014. Next issue, 311 was underutilizing available data to track its productivity and performance. As part of the Mayor's Open Data Initiative, ITA is now reporting performance metrics to the public, so that's changed since we issued the audit. Lastly, 311 did not employ industry best practice technologies found in other 311 organizations. We found that implementing CRM was a best practice moving forward. Using interactive scripting and self-service capabilities were other suggested best practices. Subsequent to our field work, the MyLA 311 mobile application and desktop portal was launched to expand and simplify the constituents' ability to request services. ITA submitted an action plan for implementing the audit recommendations, and as of September 2014, we considered 8 recommendations implemented, 10 in progress or partially implemented, 4 not yet implemented, and the department disagreed with 2 recommendations.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the auditor? I'm sorry, the Controller's Office.
Well, sure. You're saying that you think it should best be going into the mayor's office. I worry about that to some extent because you're dealing with civil service and there's no guaranteed positions, civil service positions that, in terms of the level when it's in the mayor's office, they have to weigh that against all the other positions. Are there other places that you think it might go?
It's got to be a department that's going to have the same ability to garner support and cooperation from other departments. And so that's where it becomes a little bit difficult as to which other departments you could use. When we benchmarked other agencies, in some cases there was, I believe there was a communications department that was set up that maybe handled it. But two of the agencies definitely had it involved with the mayor's office, and they had an operations office section of the mayor's office that would handle the 311 center.
Because part of it's where it's located, but part of it's also championing it. And this new mayor and this new council have really championed 311 in a different way. And so I think we're already seeing the fruits of that labor. I mean, when you look at the statistics from January, the numbers are much different, or even the numbers from last year that I've seen in this study. They're much better, and of course, all of it is based on getting into the new CRM, which everybody knows is what we need to do, and what we're doing, I think, as early as August. Is that right?
You have to talk with IT
Well, I
on the
was going to
status.
call them up. I just was
current.
going to ask if there's any other questions of the Controller's Office. I was going to call IT to come and respond to the audit. Are you ready?
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Ito with ITA, and with me is Donna Archea, who is our 311 director. And I just wanted to give a little bit of context to this because it's almost shocking to hear some of the numbers that Cynthia was providing as far as our statistics a couple of years ago, because so much good has happened in 311. So we really have kind of a different perspective with the MyLA 311 app and the soon-to-be release or soon-to-go live CRM system, as well as the vastly improved statistics for 311 that are on the open data and the mayor's dashboard. So currently the average wait time is under a minute. The call abandonment rate is about 10% or less. So, really strong numbers now, vastly improved. But if we step back and think about where we were prior to the audit, there were some issues, and the call center was really struggling. At the beginning of calendar year 2013, our former general manager, Steve Renneker, really recognized the struggle that the call center was going through, and with worse statistics, the 4-minute wait time and a call abandonment rate of around 30%. And he really began to push for additional resources for the call center. And ITA worked with the mayor's office to get the 6 additional call takers, which who started working for the call center in April of 2013, which is sort of coincidentally when the audit was when our first interview with the auditors took place. And we were also able to bring on Donna starting in July 2013. And it was really helpful to have a professional level classification of 311 call center director, where you're really getting somebody with industry experience, both in terms of the personnel issues in running a call center as well as the technology. So I think that was a really important improvement for the call center. And over the course of the year, Donna worked with the staff to bring down those statistics to the numbers where we are today. And as the auditors recognized, many of the improvements that they were and suggestions that they had in their findings were things that ITA had already put in place, and Donna was working on starting, and even the previous call center director was working on starting in April. We really wanted to just kind of address some of the findings in groupings, because there are a lot of findings that are kind of similar or related, and so we grouped them into 5 categories. One was regarding metrics, and I think you've seen and Cynthia noted that there are really a lot of metrics available on the call center performance, and it's way beyond just the wait time and the call abandonment rate. There's a lot of statistics on the types of calls, the areas that the calls are coming in from, and response time and demographics as far as the languages that the calls are, any requests for language services that the calls come in at. So I think we've published both on the Open Data website as well as on the mayor's dashboard a lot of metrics, and the new CRM system will even provide additional metrics and information on the calls and the demographics and breakdowns. Another area of findings was the call center technology. And you had mentioned the IVR. It's really a separate thing separate and apart from the CRM, and so we have another project where we're working on a new call center technology. We'll be using a system from Verizon called In Contact, which contains a lot of the features and requirements that the call centers citywide have said they needed. So it's a system that we will implement with all the call centers. And it also has sort of a fallback where if the system is offline, call centers or call takers will be able to access the call database manually rather than having to not be able to take calls, be completely offline. And it's also a cloud-based technology, so I think it'll sort of save on our internal resources as far as infrastructure. With regard to the CRM and the findings related to the plans for the CRM, I think that when you see the new system go live August 1st, you'll really see all of the planning and work that has gone into it. The first phase involves 4 departments or bureaus in Public Works. It's street lighting, street services, sanitation, and Office of Community Beautification, the graffiti office, and as well as the 311 call center. And so those departments and their existing service request systems have been interfaced with the city's single CRM, so that as requests come in, they are interfaced and dispatched out to those service request systems. And they will also be entering status updates into their own service request system, so that a requester will get updates on the service that's being performed for them, and as well as a sort of a final completion email or text saying that your service has been completed, your request has been addressed. This also gives the department an opportunity to do some follow-up and get feedback on the call-taking experience or the service request experience. So when we're looking for any kind of customer satisfaction information, we'll be able to do a follow-up survey with those participants that are interested. We've also looked into perhaps getting some demographics or information on our requesters so that we might be able to better target them and focus them towards a self-service model, going through the MyLA application or the web portal to enter their service requests. Another area of the audit findings focused on ITA and the 311 call center taking more of a leadership role among all the citywide call centers. And I think that that's been a really positive thing in that it's kind of given us the focus and the responsibility in the eyes of those other departments that they can participate and respond and look to ITA for leadership in terms of training, of maintaining the knowledge base and in the service request systems, and also looking at the technology and sort of gathering those requirements so that as we're trying to do a single call center technology, that the departments can respond and give us all of the things that they need so that we're able to really meet the needs with the right technology. Donna has hosted call center or meetings with the call center directors and their staff so that they're building sort of a community and realizing sort of the common interests and common problems across citywide call centers. And lastly, there were issues and findings around telecommunications, not really related to the call center, but kind of follow-ups to other audits that the Controller's Office had done regarding 800 numbers and also regarding long-distance calls. So with regard to 800 numbers, there was a request that we follow up with departments on unused or little-used 800 numbers, and we did that. We had sent out a listing of the approximately 40 least used 800 numbers and asked departments if we would be able to discontinue that service, and got some responses on that. And then on the long-distance and telecommunications aspect, the ITA has discontinued the requirement to use tel codes so that now city employees can call nationwide without having to enter that 5-digit number. So really the role of the tel code administrator has been greatly diminished because you only need a code to call internationally. So those were how we'd kind of grouped the findings. If there was a particular one that you had a question about, we're happy to take any questions.
And there were.
Sure. You talk about leadership role with ITA. What about the consolidation of the actual centers? I know that was scheduled, but because of budgets and everything else, that kind of took a back seat. Mm-hmm. Now that the city's starting to see slightly better finances, is that something that we can move forward in the immediate future, or what's the plan for that?
Well, I believe the CAO was actually was looking into the call center consolidation. ITA has really been so focused on the CRM and trying to improve the performance at 311. We really were not pushing for the consolidation. I think at this point we're looking to sort of make sure that that all the departments are able to use the CRM and we can get a good knowledge base that all the call centers can use, and then we can really see whether there's an opportunity for consolidation. But first we're trying to lay the groundwork with the appropriate technology.
And as far as other cities, has that been benchmarked? Do most other cities do the consolidation, the benchmark cities, or would we be leading that effort?
You know, Donna?
Some cities are completely consolidated. Some did it sort of bite by bite, where they took on maybe one department at a time, learned their processes and call handling, and then moved on to work with other agencies. So we're kind of in the middle. A couple of call centers kind of consolidated to create 311, and since then we've basically consolidated with building and safety, and there are some other opportunities, and particularly with the implementation of the CRM, will facilitate that, make that much easier, since basically there'll be several call centers kind of taking the same kinds of calls. And also with the new call center cloud-based technology, that'll help facilitate that kind of transition as well.
Right. And is the benefit of the transition, is it about cost savings, or is it about sort of efficiencies that we can get, or is it both?
Well, both. If you have separate satellite call centers, one can't really help the other if one gets really busy and the other one is not so busy. So that kind of consolidation, facilitates sort of keeping your agents busy all throughout the day, and therefore not needing as many as you would with separate call centers. The departments, of course, that could free up some of their staff to do other types of work in support of the service request fulfillment. Maybe moving that process along or helping with that process. So it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone might lose their job, but there have to be some reorganization, because in the end, one call taker can only take so many calls in a day. So the more calls you try to put into one center, you've got to have the resources to be able to handle that.
Another question ahead of the chair's indulgence about the interactive scripts. It sounded really interesting. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about what that is and what the steps are to implement that further.
I look at the knowledge base that's been created by the department subject matter experts as the key for consistency. The reason for scripting sort of the responses is for that consistency, so that when people call the call center or use your website or use your mobile app, they get the same answer no matter which resource they go to, and it makes for a much better experience. That knowledge base is really the key for us, and so I've reestablished these periodic meetings with the department editors and approvers who are responsible for that knowledge to help keep it up to date at all times, so that that information is available. So when it comes to sort of scripting or actually, forcing people to say certain words, we don't really go to that point, because it's a much better experience. Every call is going to be unique. Every customer has different questions, and we want them to have access to the right answers and information, but not necessarily to script those answers. But the knowledge base is really key to making that experience work for the customer.
I have a couple of questions on 4 different findings. On finding 1, what's the status of the implementation of the constituent relationship management system?
It's actually in the testing phase right now, and we're getting ready to begin the training phase.
And when is that going to start?
We're actually planning to roll it out for August 1st of this year.
And how long is the training going to take before it's fully implemented?
The training process varies. I think there's about 700 employees that look like they're going to have access to the system, so it's going to definitely take through the month of June. I believe in July we're planning a soft rollout to use the system internally with the call centers and make sure, and then on August 1st the public portal and mobile app will be available to the public, so that should complete the rollout.
Okay, so we should be up and running by August 1st?
Yes.
And in finding 4, which features does ITA plan to add to the My LA 311 system in the future?
Finding 4. You mean what additional departments?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We've got some funding already for Phase 2, and the plan after this initial rollout is we'll be doing some interface with the council. What do they call those? Council.
It's the elected
Management.
officials' office management system,
Okay.
as well as the animal services
So you can
system,
directly request services
Right.
through a council office, or have an inquiry to a council office, and animal services are 2 of the features you're looking at?
Yes, we're looking to include animal service request types, Department of Transportation, some of their request types like abandoned vehicles and some of their other functions, and recreation and parks, their request types also.
That's great.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to convey our appreciation to the Budget and Finance Committee, and particularly Councilmember Blumenfield, for adding the funding for the CRM. We were partially funded for Phase 2, but Budget and Finance Committee added another $955,000 so we could do the full Phase 2, which adds those departments Donna mentioned, so thank you.
Good job.
I'm very excited.
I really like this system. At least in my district, I go above and beyond every single time I get to talk to a neighborhood watch group, which are usually the folks that are impacted the most. They live in those neighborhoods, and teaching them just to download the actual app and then walking them through how easy it is to actually maneuver. It's pretty cool. And I see in my district how much people like to use that app, so
Great.
I'm a huge fan. Finding number 6. Since the audit, what updates has ATA made to the interactive voice response system?
We actually included in our greeting letting people know about self-service options so that if they don't want to wait on hold, they can download the mobile app or use the web page. Also, after hours, we added a voicemail option, so if people wanted to just leave us a message about a service request.
This is after 5 o'clock?
Yes, after 5 o'clock when we're closed, it leaves a message, and the next day we put those in the system or call the constituent back if we need to, that kind of thing. So that's what we've done so far.
Usually, what's the time that people, how fast do you get back to someone who left the message after 5 o'clock?
Well, we check them every morning, so we're usually back to the person by, let's say, noon of the following day. So all the requests are input within 24 hours or less.
Have you implemented the text messaging? I thought I heard you say that earlier during your response. And
we
any
don't-
additional
We don't have
communication channels?
we don't have a text messaging option, but we do now have an appearance on Twitter at MyLA311, and we're monitoring all the city departments and the public for potential 311 type service requests. You know, if we see a picture of the couch on the corner and they're complaining, we can chime in and say, if you give us the location, we'll be happy to get a service request and get that picked up. And
What is it going to take to implement a text messaging function, though? Is that something that you're looking at for the future? Is it going to take funding?
I think for the intake part, it's difficult because you need to get
But to the
much more
response,
information. Yeah, as
Right.
far as the feedback, that's something we could look into, as far as the follow-up portion, I think that's a much easier thing.
Right. We don't have that option yet. However, I believe with the new call center technology, there's an option for that we have looked into, so that we can receive requests via text messaging or send them out. A lot of what we're doing today is via email, where we can put a little additional information than what you can get in a short text or a tweet. So we ask people to contact us either with a call or an email for more in-depth things, but we will look into that further.
And has the citywide service directory been routinely updated since the audit?
Yes, and that's really what Donna has led with the meetings of the other call centers and with other departments. So it's not even really just the call centers. It's with every department that provides service that she's met with them and asked their staff to commit to updating their services in the
And
system.
routinely maintaining it as well.
Yes,
Right, that's
we've
the
established
level
service
agreement.
level agreements with them, outlining their responsibilities and that they review all their data at a minimum of once a year. However, we've also requested that as their services or programs change, that they make real-time updates. I also actually, a couple people on my team sort of redefine some of their responsibilities so that we can take a more proactive role in that. If our reps indicate that any of the information has been reported as out of date, we're immediately in contact with that department to proactively request that they make those updates so that it's kept accurate as possible.
Which departments have you entered into a service level agreement with?
We've sent it out to all the departments. We've received signed copies back from about a third of the departments, but I hope to have the rest back by the time we roll out the CRM on August 1st.
Is that the deadline? You're giving them
Yes.
up? Okay.
Mhm.
And my final question is, what are you doing to increase the use of the 311 service to limited English proficient folks besides Spanish? What other languages are you outreaching to, or do you plan to expand to?
Do you want to talk about the Korean?
Sure. We plan, as part of our CRM rollout, a little outreach campaign that's primarily focused on the self-service options. But in addition to that, we are looking at some information to see about things that we can do for other non-English speakers. Recently, Mayor came and did a press conference with 311 on the Back to Basics agenda, and there one of the reporters was from Channel 18, the Korean channel. They did a story about 311 on their channel, and I'm actually waiting to get information back from our translator service to see how that bumped up the request for service in Korean. So as soon as I should get that information next month, and so if I see that that did well, then we'll be looking at outlets such as those types of foreign language channels and doing some kind of advertising directly to them. We also will be looking at, for our Phase 2, potentially offering foreign language when they connect to the portal to be able to see our information in other languages, but that's not been determined or finalized yet.
And how about the app? Would folks be able to access the app in other languages besides? It's currently available in Spanish or just in English?
Just in
Just
Just
in
in
English.
English.
Yeah.
We hadn't done anything with that, but I will make a note of that. And we'll take a look.
Everyone's got a smartphone now.
Yes, they
I don't
do.
care where you go in this part of the city, in my district, everyone, even if you're a monolingual Spanish speaker, you know how to take a picture and download it on Facebook. I mean, it's that prevalent. So it was one of the things that came up in one community meeting where I was asked if the app was going to be made available in other languages besides English. I figured it was a financial question at some point. We're going to have to revisit the budget and figure
It
out how we would
normally
pay
is,
for that.
yeah.
Yeah, it normally is, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I think those are all my questions. Do you have anything else?
I think it's a good point in that, in terms of getting other languages, it's
Super easy to use.
and it's just a matter of getting the screens translated and getting
Sure.
mirror website stuff. So it's eminently doable. It's a lot easier than a lot of other issues when you're trying to bring in different languages because it's pre-done. So no other questions then.
No? Well, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, I don't see any cards on this item?
No.
No, there isn't. So I see no more cards. If there are no objections, I'd like to note and file the audit.
Great. And some of this stuff will come to ITA in the future.
I was going to ask that.
But I don't think we don't need to take any special action to make that
Okay.
happen. So
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon. And I also don't have any cards for public comment, so I will move that we adjourn our audit committee meeting.
second.
Thank you very much.